Good afternoon, everyone. As Dr. Ranjit told, no, we need to tell ourselves only. Sometimes we don't have audience. Sometimes we start with a small gathering, and we just hope that it becomes a bigger gathering in near future. So my topic for today is non-ophthal. It is a very unconventional topic, but it is very dear to my heart. So I always speak in almost all the conferences. I speak the same PPT, thinking that it will reach the masses. So the equal hands to heal, the case for disability inclusion in medicine. Rather than a talk, this is more than a food for thought. So everybody knows Steve Hawkins. He was a physicist and a very severely impaired, disabled person. Hallel Keller, everybody knows, was blind and deaf. Aruna Sani and Zia Boy, they both scaled Mount Everest and they were lower limb amputees. Our own profession, Dr. Suresh Advani was a lower limb impaired oncologist. Dr. Satinder Singh is still professor in physiology in UCMS and he has a lower limb impairment. Dr. Sharad Philip happens to be my student, is AP in psychiatry in AIMS Guwahati, and he is blind. Dr. Tim Corden is a blind physicist. Dr. Blake is a dyslexic cardiologist. Dr. Chris is a lower limb impaired pediatric surgeon. And Dr. Dinesh is a quadriplegic emergency intern. Dr. Amanda is hearing impaired family medicine doctor. So with these thoughts, these people have amply proved that disability is not a hindrance to get into a medical profession. So according to the Rights of Persons with Disability Act 2016, there are 21 listed disabilities. There are rules and reservations. More than 40% disability people are eligible for the reservation, and 5% horizontal reservation across all categories is there for the UG and the PG medical courses. So now if there are rules, there are regulations, then where is the problem? Why there are so many cases who are going to the court to get admission into the medical profession? The problem lies in our guidelines which we have made for the UG and the PG curriculum. They are readily available on the net. These are not made by me. So we will get a brief insight into these guidelines. For MBBS curriculum, if I have the ones which I marked green, if you look at the blindness category, so less than 40% disability is not eligible for the reservation, more than 40% is not eligible for the course. So there are many disabilities where there are no clear-cut guidelines. So we have also made guidelines for the PG curriculum. So there we go one step ahead and we tell which disability will do which profession. Just think of somebody telling me I can do this, I cannot do this, how bad it looks. So looking at the ophthalmology profession, only the limited lower limb disabilities people can do the ophthal, or a mild acid attack victim can do, or a blood disorder person can do. Just sit and think of who actually can do ophthalmology. So why these guidelines are not acceptable to persons with disability, why they are going to the court? Because the stakeholders are not there. So stakeholders need to be there when the selection, the guidelines are set by the committees. Because the persons with disability, they understand their needs and the capabilities both. Then there are many guidelines which say that we cannot provide reasonable accommodations, or they are not feasible to be provided. Now what does a reasonable accommodation mean? In our house, if I have to change a tube light, I need a staircase or a chair, so that's a reasonable accommodation. So providing reasonable accommodation is the responsibility of the society and the right of persons with disability. Nowadays, if you go to CBSE site, till +2, all the books are available in the audio form on their website. So that is a reasonable accommodation. So why cannot those books be available in braille and audio in the medical profession also? And then what is the reasonable accommodation? You need elevators, you need ramps, and they say the elevators are not working, the ramps are not there. If they are there, they are very crowded, they are inaccessible. Do you think these accommodations are needed only for PWDs? They are needed for patients also who reach the hospital. And nowadays, almost all the hospitals, all the buildings need to be made disable friendly. So then there are very derogatory remarks in the guidelines for persons with disability saying that we cannot reduce the standard of medical education. We are a competency-based medical profession. At the end of the profession, there is an exam. Everybody needs to pass. Lowering the standards doesn't come. And a case-to-case assessment is very important. You cannot have blanket exclusion of disabilities. And you cannot tell what they can do, what they cannot do. You're going to take an exam at the end. If you do not feel they're competent enough, don't pass them. Having doctors with disability will make this profession more sensitive, more patient-friendly. Patients actually relate to people who have the same kind of disabilities more than they relate to us. And then there's another thing in the guidelines saying that the IITs, the NITs, they do not take people with disability into their courses. This is not true. My own son is in an engineering college, so this is not true. And if it is true also, medical profession is an institute in itself. We do not follow others. We make examples for others to follow. So I'll just conclude with 2 slides. The present guidelines are against the spirit of inclusion of PWDs into medical education. We need to change our mindset. We need to have a more positive approach towards people with disabilities. We need to give them equal opportunities. We need to believe that they can do things as good as or even better than us. We should allow the persons with disability to decide for their choices, and we should not be doing that for them. And having doctors with disability will make this profession a beautiful profession. They are going to be an asset and not a burden. I'll sum up this talk with beautiful lines by our Chief Justice in 2021. While delivering a verdict on the persons with disability into medical education, he said this: when competent persons with disability are unable to realize their full potential due to the barriers posed in their path, our society suffers as much, if not more, as do the disabled people involved. For it is denying to the nation the opportunity to be served by highly competent people who claim nothing but access to equal opportunity and a barrier-free environment. And if this is also not enough for provoking some thoughts, let us ask one question to ourselves. What if I become disabled today due to any reason? Will my stand still remain the same as I have now for persons with disability? Thank you.